You are listening to an X106 Sports Podcast. Trevor Mater, Luke Peterson here with you. We have a lot to talk about, and it all pertains to the NFL. It's the offseason, which, Luke, I would almost argue the NFL offseason is just about as entertaining and as exciting, at least for me, as the regular season can be.
Man, especially this last offseason, because, we always have some big trades in the offseason, but with this, with the Alex Smith, with the Marcus Peters, Kirk Cousins. We had all these big moves that were going on even before free agency started, and then we had the Kirk Cousins one where a top-tier quarterback in his prime was a free agent, not as much like when Manning was a free agent. So I would argue that this was by far one of the craziest NFL offseason in terms of just on-field or like that type of production, not as much of what's going on with collective bargaining agreement or protests or anything like just in terms of football and moves related to football. This was by far the craziest.
You look at some of the notable names that will be with different teams in 2018: Alex Smith, Marcus Peters, and Ndamukong Suh. Also, you look at a guy like Richard Sherman. I mean, there's a lot of big names that have jumped to another team, and I know I'm forgetting tons as well. Jimmy Graham, Aqib Talib,
Kirk Cousins. Now we're going to have Des Bryant somewhere else too. So
there's a lot of movement in the NFL. And let's just jump right into it. Des Bryant last week, I believe last Friday, was cut by the Cowboys. Where do you think Des goes from here? What do you think is on the table for him?
Man, I'm just trying to think of some teams that really need. If I'm Des, as much as it sucks, I gotta swallow my pride a little bit. I want to go to a team that has a decent or a potentially good young receiver and kind of be that 1-2 rotation guy, kind of like what Minnesota did with Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, where neither guy are always the number one. They kind of rotate. Some weeks it's Thielen's number one, other weeks it's Diggs. Do that, take a little less money, but you go somewhere like that. I'm just trying to think of a team that's like that right now, because I would have said the Bears, but I think the Bears are pretty well set up with Allen Robinson, and so I don't know. I can't really think of a specific team right now. Maybe kind of like what the Giants did with Brandon Marshall this last year. Like if Dez wants to be okay with not being the true number one and being behind Odell and Sterling Shepard and stuff like that, I think that could be a good fit for him.
I think three teams to me make the most sense. It's just a matter of how the cap works for them. Carolina, where they've got a couple of young wide receivers in Curtis Samuel and Devin Funchess. They did get Torrey Smith this offseason. Dez would give Cam a versatile number one that he's never really had. We thought Kelvin Benjamin would be that, and he just wasn't. Green Bay, potentially, if they have the cap room. Carolina doesn't have a ton of cap room to wiggle with. But give Aaron Rodgers a weapon because they lost Jordy Nelson this year. And, Devontae Adams was good. He's good when he's healthy, but it's just a matter of whether or not he can stay healthy. And Aaron Rodgers is hurting for weapons. And then I think the ultimate wild card and maybe the team that ends up getting him is the San Francisco 49ers. And we'll do our mock draft or our top 15 mock draft here in a little bit. And maybe they go receiver in the draft, or maybe they get Des Bryant and give Jimmy Garoppolo another weapon. But I think those are the 3 or 4 teams that are probably the most likely to be able to go out and get him.
Yeah, I went and found a CBS article where they ranked it. They have the Niners at 1, the Ravens at 2, which could be another decent one too. That's just a terrible offense though. So if Dez wants to compete, he's better not go there. The Redskins at 3, Seattle at 4 is another interesting one. He didn't do as well with Dak's style of play, which is closer to the style of play that Russell Wilson has, more that scrambling guy. But another one too. But it's he can make one of the worst rosters in the NFL slightly better if he goes to the Colts. That's a good one too. But yeah, I would not be surprised. The Niners, they still have a decent amount of cap room, don't they?
Yeah, they had a ton of cap room to begin with, and they went out and got Richard Sherman, and they have Jimmy Garoppolo from last year, and he got paid this offseason. So they got the cap room to do it, and I think that's a good fit. I think he'd blend well in Kyle Shanahan's offense, and I'm not so sure that's not where he doesn't end up.
I would want to go there, right? That's a good team it's building. Yeah, you have Jimmy G at QB. You got Marquise Goodwin and Pierre Garçon also on there, and Pierre's getting up in age. Goodwin's decent, but he's not nearly the type of player that Dez has been in his career. So But also that thing is too is what Dez are we going to get? Are we going to get 2014 Dez, or are we going to get the last couple of years Dez that's been injured and hasn't really produced?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question is I don't think Dez Bryant will never be what we thought he was when he was drafted out of Oklahoma State. And I think Tony Romo helped make Dez Bryant look really, really good as well, whether people want to give Romo the credit for that or not. But the point for Dez Bryant now, it shouldn't be to go back to what he was. It should be just stay healthy and just to prove that he's still a competent wide receiver. I kind of compare him to Sammy Watkins. And I mean, Dez is a little bit older than Sammy Watkins. Watkins is only 25. He's got a couple more years than Dez does. But they're both guys that we thought might be the next big thing, and for whatever reason, they just never quite clicked.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
That reminds me, though. I read an article on The Ringer probably about a year and a half ago. It was on Justin Blackmon, and when he also came out of Okie State.
Yep.
And when he was getting drafted, he was called Dez Bryant with all his brain cells. And, oh, man, how wrong were we on that? But
yeah, I think there were some things that may have helped him lose those brain cells. But, yeah, that was a guy that, man, what was he, 6'3", 6'4", big, fast wide receiver. Everyone thought he was going to be the next big thing, and he turned out to not be the next big thing.
Yeah, but, according to Spotrac, the Panthers are 30th in available cap space right now. So they definitely do not have it with the Niners still have $35 million in cap space they can spend. So
yeah, they've got it. And I think Dez will bring in probably $8 or $9 million a year, and he might be a 1-year deal. I really think it could be a 1 or 2 year deal. 2 years, $16 million, 2 years, $19 million, somewhere in the $16 to $20 million ballpark. That's $8-10 million this year, somewhere in there, and kind of give him a chance to gamble on himself. Now, the ultimate question is, does this mean that the Cowboys go and draft a wide receiver? I say yes, because I don't think they have much there.
I mean, yeah, because it's like Cole Beasley has been a nice a nice slot player, but they did also just sign Allen Hurns. That'll be good. I think Hurns can take over as a good number one receiver right now until they figure something else out. Because right now on their roster, Cole Beasley, Noah Brown, Katie Cannon, Allen Hurns, Lance Lenore, Ryan Switzer, Deontay Thompson, and Terrence Williams. So I like the combination of Hurns and Beasley together, but you got to get another guy, whether that's scooping another underappreciated free agent player or drafting someone. But
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think they go with and this wide receiver draft class. We'll get more into the draft later. It's pretty deep when you look. I don't think it's not super great like it was a couple years ago. It doesn't, I don't think, have the potential that it did in like 2014 when you had Odell Beckham and Sammy Watkins and Mike Evans. But you got Calvin Ridley from Alabama, Cortland Sutton from SMU, DJ Moore from Maryland. He's been projected by a mini to go into the first round. You get into the second round, you got a guy like James Washington from Oklahoma State. So Christian Kirk from Texas A&M, kind of late first, early second. So there's some pieces there that, and the Cowboys are picking, I believe, 19th. You have 19th in the draft. So they could go out and get a guy like a Calvin Ridley or even a Cortland Sutton, I think, who might be the best receiver in this draft class. But we'll see what they do. Just real quick, free agency is pretty much done except for wherever Dez goes. What are some of the teams to you that have kind of stuck out with the things they've done and some of the things you like?
Three that really stuck out to me. First would be my Minnesota Vikings. That it was a tough decision, but I think with how things have been the last few years, I think the Cousins deal was the smartest move. But also they picked up Sheldon Richardson on a cheap 1-year deal. They picked up Kendall Wright, who as a solid number 3, and especially with Laquan Treadwell's growth not being there, that's all. They traded for Trevor Siemian, which everyone's like, why? But like,
good backup.
Siemian as a backup is another solid pick. So like they have added more depth to defensive line. They added more depth to receiver. They added a backup quarterback. Now the situation is just improving that offensive line. So they're in good shape going into the draft. them. The Rams is another one that really sticking out. They're kind of scaring me though because on two reasons. They're scaring me because I think that's a very, if you look at the roster in terms of talent, that's now one of the best rosters in the league.
I think it might be the best when you look at talent.
But when you look at the character issues that's on that roster too, those are some concerns, and also I don't know. I just have a feeling of that Eagles, the dream team Eagles.
And that's where I'm at. The thing with most of these teams that go out and they get all this big talent is it normally doesn't work. And the good thing for the Rams is most of these guys are on 1-year deals, so they're not really. They're all in this year, but they're not tied down long term. I believe Marcus Peters He has a 5th-year option, so they have the option after this year whether or not they want to keep him. I think Ndamukong Suh is a 1-year deal.
I don't know how much is left on Talib's Denver
deal. I think
deal.
Talib might – no, did they trade for Talib? Didn't
Yeah.
they? I think he might have had 1 or 2 years left, but they're pretty much putting all their chips in for this year. I'm not sold on them. I wouldn't even put them really in my top 3 as far as teams that impressed me probably. I like as a Chiefs fan, I like what they did this offseason. Defensively, they got younger. As much as I loved guys like Derek Johnson and Tom Bahali, having grown up watching them play, Father Time caught up to them.
Oh, yeah.
And it showed. Definitely to Tom Bahali. There were plays last year where Derek Johnson looked pretty good, and then there were plays where it was like, what the hell are you doing out there? They added Anthony Hitchens, who is one of the more underrated linebackers, I think, in the NFL. He's a really, really good run stuffer. And he can kind of do what they've used Justin Houston to do as far as putting him in coverage, and they can let Houston do his thing, get the quarterback. They also added Kendall Fuller. And then that offense, now if Sammy Watkins can stay healthy, then you have another big weapon there for Patrick Mahomes. So I like what they did, but the Browns, I like what the Browns did. I don't think it's going to be – there's a lot of people that overreacted after the Browns made all those moves. I see the Browns going 6-10, 7-9, which when you've won one game in the last 2 years, 6-10 is pretty damn good. But they go out and they add Jarvis Landry, they add Tyrod Taylor, they got Sam Shields from the Sam Shields went to the Rams. Who did the host of the Browns add? I know they added somebody else.
Let's see here, but that also is my third one too. I would say so. They added, let's see.
I know they added someone else, and it's.
I'm just annoyed because this
it's escaping me. I know they added Carlos Hyde, and the 49ers.
Yeah, they signed Carlos Hyde. I'm just mad because here's trades. So through trades, they added Jarvis Landry, Tyrod Taylor, Demarius Randall.
Demarius Randall from the Packers. I knew it was somebody from the Packers. I like what they did. They got younger. I think Tyrod Taylor's a good filler quarterback for whoever they take number one. I really like what they did this season. They also went out and got Drew Stanton, who's a quality backup too if they don't go quarterback. And the 49ers going out and adding Richard Sherman. I like that. And I like what the Bears have done. They gave Mitchell Trubisky some weapons. They went out and got Allen Robinson from Jacksonville. And they've figured out that the best way to get a young quarterback to succeed is to put the pieces around him. And I think Matt Nagy's going to do fairly well in Chicago in the future. So I like what they did as well.
Yeah, I would say the Browns are my third one. And I was talking about this with people both last week with Austin and then just with people in general at work and all that. I think Tyrod Taylor is the second best quarterback in that division now. I think that with how Flacco and Dalton have played the last couple of years, I think he's the best. And I think he has a good chance to take over as number one this year if Father Time catches up to Big Ben like it possibly could. Right now with the Browns, I think same thing. I think they're about that 6-10 to 8-8. Maybe they could sneak a 9-7 if they play their cards right. But I think that this offense, if they play to their potential, can be a scary one with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, Jarvis Landry, and Josh Gordon at receiver. David Njoku, who had a very underrated, quiet rookie year. Jabril Peppers, you can throw in for some wrinkles. You have Carlos Hyde at running back. You have Duke Johnson, who is another underappreciated player in the NFL right now. He's been a solid pass-catching running back the last couple of years. He's been a staple on my bench of my fantasy team. But I like them. But yeah, the Bears is one that I'm also interested to see what happens because because like as bad as the Bears were last year, I liked a lot of what I saw at Trubisky. He impressed me a lot.
Did better than I thought he would. I was not sold on Trubisky coming out of college, having only played 1 year. I thought he was going to be a bust, and I mean, it's still a jury's still out. I mean, John Fox wasn't a great offensive-minded coach,
and not good at the young talent either. He showed that with all 3 teams he's been with, that he's not very good at playing the young guys and getting them up there. But the biggest comparison we can make with Trubisky is looking at what Trubisky did his rookie year to what to like Carson Wentz. I think we're going to see a similar jump in production. He's not going to play at an MVP level, but we're going to see that jump from slightly below average to near the top with Carson Wentz to bottom of the pack to middle tier, maybe pushing close to the top 10 quarterback for Trubisky. I think we're going to see the Bears jump to about 8-8 this year with how that offense is set up now, because that running back duo they have there too with Allen Robinson. I like the Bears' chances a lot. They have a solid young defense as well, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, they're one that I'm very intrigued by, and I'm interested to see what happens, especially because I think they can push for third in that division over the Lions, because I'm not really sold on the Lions right now.
I think maybe they can push for second too. I'm not completely sold on the Packers. I think the Vikings are obviously the favorite in that division, but outside of that, second through fourth is just kind of a crapshoot. Let's just jump right in now to the NFL draft. That'll start next Thursday, a week from tomorrow. It's one of my favorite things of the year. I always make sure that I'm free on that Thursday night and have some food, a couple drinks, and enjoy the draft. I love the first round. Second, third round, I pay attention to. I want to know who the Chiefs draft. I want to see where the quarterbacks go. I want to see where any of the Iowa guys go or Big Ten guys go. And then Saturday, when it's rounds 4 through 7, I kind of keep up with it. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this draft class that could make some hay down the road. Let's just go ahead and who's your top 5? Go 5-1.
Man, let's see. Let me pull up. Ooh, that's just hard just because, I don't know, it's because there's stuff I like about all these guys in different ways, but I think Rosen is the one I have to go with number 1, just because for pro style, he was the closest to playing that, and he was the one that impressed me the most out of all those. They're playing more of that pro style, so I think I'll go Rosen at 1. I don't know, man. This once you get after that, it gets really hard, because it's like Allen played well, but he also played really bad in some games. Same with Sam Darnold, but I think I'll lean to Darnold at 2, and then Allen at 3. Baker Mayfield is probably 4. I'm interested to see what he can do, because I think he has that chip on his shoulder. He wants to do well, but we'll see. And then, man, at 5, I don't know, Lamar Jackson, I guess.
So you're going Darnold, Rosen, Allen, Mayfield. And this is by no means exactly how Luke will have him in his mock draft, because I know mine's a little bit different in the order taken. But so you've got Darnold, Rosen, Allen, Mayfield, and Lamar Jackson. We could not really be much more different in terms of our top 5.
It also just depends on where they go, too, because like I said it before, I said that if Manziel would have gone to the Cardinals under the Bruce Arians regime, I think Manziel would be in the league right now. I don't think he would have. I think because they showed
New Orleans with Sean Payton.
Because they showed, I used the Arizona as a good example because of how they treated Tyrann Mathieu. They signed him on this low-term deal. Even if you went there right after he got cut by the Browns, they signed him on this low-risk deal, and you got to work for it. They worked on his character, and then he turned into one of the best defensive players in the league. And if it wasn't for injury concerns and with that, then he probably still be playing for the Cardinals right now instead of suiting up for the Texans.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. My top 5, I'll just go 1 to 5. I got Sam Darnold. I think he's the safest. I'm not sure what Darnold's upside is, but I think his downside is better than any of the rest of them. Number 2, I got Baker Mayfield. I think with Mayfield, a lot of the comparisons between Mayfield and Manziel that people have given, I don't think are fair. Mayfield and Manziel are a lot different. The way they play, Manziel was not well received by his teammates. Mayfield's teammates adore him. The guy's a leader. He knows how to win. He makes plays. I think he's got to go to the right situation. I think he is not someone that should play right away by any means, but I think Baker Mayfield has potential to be the best quarterback in that class. Number 3, I got Josh Rosen. I'm kind of iffy about him. There's things about him I like, and there's things about him I don't like. I could care less about what the scouts say about his not being totally invested in football. I don't buy that. I'm sure if he's gotten as far at this point, I'm sure he's pretty invested in it. Josh Allen, I have him ranked 4th. He is the one that I think is the most likely to bust.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's like he showed a lot of success in some of the times at Wyoming, but like that was at Wyoming against some of the average Mountain West teams, you know. And then he played some of the big boys, like that Iowa game this last year. He looked miserable.
Looked good.
And like, don't get me wrong, like there's probably some guys on that Iowa defense they're gonna go in these first couple rounds, but like I don't know, if you're trying to be a pro style quarterback, you know, like and you're doing this bad against a mid-tier Big Ten team, then what's going to happen when you get thrown in? You know, because let's say he goes to Arizona. Now, so, okay, you know, Sam Bradford gets hurt because it's Sam Bradford. You know, you get thrown in. All of a sudden, you're going against Ndamukong Suh, Marcus Peters, and Aqib Talib against the Rams. You have Aaron Donald, you know, coming up to sack you too. You're playing the Niners. You got Richard Sherman there. You got... Like, no matter what, like, you know, if he goes to a team like in Arizona, that's scary because all 3 of those division teams, they all have some really good playmakers on defense that will really mess you up.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where they all go. Allen, you know, he only completed 56% of his passes at Wyoming. I mean, so you're not playing against great defenses in the Mountain West.
And he also is not playing like a guy like a Cam Newton, because like Cam will put around 60% completions every once, like even in the NFL. But Cam's style of play is that style of play that usually that happens, and also his receivers, besides when he had Steve Smith, have been downright terrible.
And my 5th quarterback, I was on the fence. I like Mason Rudolph of Oklahoma State, big, strong kid, 6'5", 220. He's got the arm. I think I like him more than I like Lamar Jackson because Mason Rudolph completed 65% of his passes at Oklahoma State in an offense where he threw the ball deeper a lot too. I know it's not necessarily the ideal NFL offense. We saw Brandon Weeden come out of there. That offense was not why Brandon Weeden didn't succeed in the NFL. Brandon Weeden was 28 years old. He went to a bad team. I like Mason Rudolph. I think he could kind of be the gem in this class. He has the upside. It's just how well he can understand the X's and O's of an NFL offense. But I'd put him ahead of Lamar Jackson. But I think those are the top 6, and I think there's a strong possibility that all 6 of those guys go in the first round.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just pulled up this list, actually. This is interesting to see. So yesterday, David Carr posted his quarterbacks in terms of if they're pro ready or not. So as day 1 starter, he has Mayfield and Allen, hit or miss. So, like, could be day 1, maybe they could wait. Rosen and Darnold and Lamar. And then sleepers, he has Mason Rudolph. And then he has...
Who is this?
David Carr on NFL.com. And then his other sleeper, which, I mean, I can see that, but he is making comparisons more of a late-round pick, but he also does have Tanner Lee up there as well.
I think Lee's arm is going to be what impresses a lot of people, and rightfully so. I liked what I saw from Kyle Alada in the Senior Bowl. I'm not sure that he'll ever be more than a quality backup.
But, I mean, hey.
And Luke Falk at Washington State, he's got the arm.
I think Lee, Falk, Lauletta, I think those 3, yeah, we're going to see those. They're going to be that 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round draft picks. And they're going to be those backups that, yeah, maybe they come in a little bit and play. But, you know, if
Lee kind of reminds me of like a C.J. Beathard type player where he'll probably be a quality backup, but not much more than that. One guy I want to see is Mike White from Western Kentucky, 6'4", 225. They run basically a sling-it offense. I want to see where he ends up. My guess is probably in that same ballpark as Lee and a lot of 4th, 5th, 6th round somewhere in there, fighting for a roster spot, maybe a backup position.
Yeah, we'll see. Yep. Because the comparison that Carr's making with Lee reminds me of Michigan quarterback Tom Brady. Before you have the coronation, not the GOAT Tom Brady we know, but the young guy. I remember watching the Orange Bowl from my grandfather's living room. Lee has the same confidence, good footwork and accuracy. Yes, there was a reason. There's a reason Brady was selected in the 6th round. Didn't do anything from a physical standpoint. Say, he's going to break the defense down and put a lot of pressure on these guys and throw 85 yards. So he's more saying is he's more going to be like the early Brady, because I mean if you look at Brady's numbers really before
like 2004,
like those first couple years as a starter, he was mid-tier quarterback, and then that third Super Bowl he really started to become that top player in the league, and then especially 2007 and then on. So he's comparing Rudolph though to Big Ben, but without the sneaky athleticism. But I can see that. He's 6'5", 235.
I would say Big Ben, Joe Flacco, somewhere in there with, just the arm strength. I like Rudolph a lot.
Yeah. Scouts are pretty smart, so we'll see. But yeah, that he's a good wild card, I think. I always forget about him too, because obviously the three that are probably going to go in the top 5 with Darnold, Rosen, and Allen. They get the most love, and then obviously Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson because of what they also have done. But yeah, then you have all these other guys that have had impressive seasons or impressive Senior Bowls and combines, but they're going to be those later picks. So we'll see. Even though I that's probably my top 5, I don't see them going that way either. Probably because.
I have my top 15 mock draft completed, and in my top 5. They're not in that order by any means. So, I don't know. It'll be really interesting. Speaking of mock drafts, did you get your top 15 mock draft completed?
I think so.
All right. So, let's just go ahead and jump into it. We decided we're going to do a top 15 mock draft. Sean Nino and I did a 32, the full first round last year, and that was tedious and time-consuming. But just top 15, we did put in the option of trades if we so chose. It's tough to predict trades because you never know what's going to happen. It's easier to do these now that we're a week away from the draft than when guys try to do them in March before free agency starts. That always makes it tough. A lot of people don't like mock drafts. They think they're a waste of time. I, for some reason, thoroughly enjoy them. So I've put together my mock draft. First pick, the Cleveland Browns earned that right by going 0-16. Second team ever to do so. They've won just one game in the last 2 seasons. We mentioned earlier they've made some good offseason moves. They went out and got Tyrod Taylor. They also signed Drew Stanton as a backup. There's a lot of quarterbacks that many people think could go number 1. Who do you think the Browns take at number 1?
I don't think they take a quarterback, honestly.
Really?
I'm torn between them taking either Saquon or picking up Bradley Chubb to strengthen that good young defense. I think they like what they have. And honestly, if I'm the Browns, I like what I have with Tyrod Taylor and Drew Stanton. I would rather.
I don't think that they want that long term. Is why I think they'll go quarterback.
See, if I'm the Browns, what I would do is I would, instead of picking someone like Darnold or Josh Allen at 1 or at 4, I pick up a Mason Rudolph in the 2nd or 3rd round. I don't think Rudolph's there in the 2nd round. Yeah, so I pick up those guys that could fall or trade up into. I know a few mock drafts have the Browns trade up to 32 to pick up Lamar Jackson. I would do that if I'm the Browns, honestly.
So you're saying Saquon Barkley?
I think I'll go Saquon at 1. Yeah,
the Browns are in an interesting position at 1 because when you look at the teams drafting behind them, you have the Giants because they have picks at 1 and 4. It's the first time since 2000 that a team has 2 picks in the top 4. You have the Giants at 2. Who knows what they could do? They could draft a quarterback. They could trade out. They could stick there and take a position player. The Jets at 3. The Jets are taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
So there's a chance if the Browns don't take quarterback at 1, they could get the 3rd best. By the time they get to number 4, it could be the 3rd best quarterback. Whoever they feel that is. And in my case, it would be Josh Rosen. And I believe in your case, it would be Josh Allen. Are they comfortable with that? I think they like Josh Allen enough. But I think John Dorsey's the same guy that traded up last year and took Patrick Mahomes. So I'm going to say they take Sam Darnold, get the quarterback. They have the guys there in front of him that can let him learn, and it'll be a redshirt year for him. Because if you don't get him at 1, and then at 4, because they sound like they're really high on Josh Allen and Sam Darnold. Well, at 4, your options might be Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen. Darnold and Allen might be off the board. So I'm going to say Sam Darnold number 1 to the Browns. Let's move on to the second pick. The New York Giants have that pick. They could do just about anything. They could take Bradley Chubb. They could take Quentin Nelson. They could take Saquon Barkley. They could take quarterback, or they could trade out. What do you think they do?
Knowing some of the draft history that Dave Gettleman did with Carolina, I think he's going to do that safe pick. I think we're going to see Quentin Nelson go. It just say he's never, besides like the Benjamin draft, like a lot of like if you look at all the really good first round Panthers picks the last few years, like Cam Newton, Luke Kuechly, those were all Martin Hurney. So I think he goes with the safe one because they went with like, who was it? They went like a defensive lineman.
Star Lutulele?
No, I'm saying after the Super Bowl year, they went with like some random defense. I can't remember the defensive lineman's name, but like a defensive lineman when they already had Star Lutulele. They already had a solid. Let me go pull up the 2016.
I can look it up.
It's a 2016 draft. So whoever they picked at 31, and it was just like, really?
Yeah, let's see here. 2016.
Oh, 2007.
Yeah, Vernon Butler from Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember that.
Yeah, and it's because it's like Butler's been like okay, but like that was not the issue that they had. At the issue that they lost the Super Bowl was not because of the. It was the
offensive line. It wasn't the defensive line.
But so knowing Gettleman and knowing his weird thing, I don't know. He'll go with something. He'll go with Quentin Nelson, or he'll go with some super off the wall one. But I think Nelson's the best move for them if they are comfortable with Eli for a couple more years, because that's the day one starter offensive lineman right there.
Yeah, and they added Nate Solder this year at tackle too. That'll make their offensive line better. Eric Flowers is terrible. I'm going to say they trade.
That would be a smart move, honestly.
The Buffalo Bills have 2 first-round picks. They got one in they swapped with Cincinnati in the Cordy Glenn trade earlier this year, and they acquired the Chiefs pick this year when last year the Chiefs traded up to take Patrick Mahomes. They have picks 12 and picks 22. I'm going to say they send both of those down south to East Rutherford, and the Bills take Josh Allen. They really like Josh Allen. He played in Wyoming, so he's used to playing in the cold weather. He's the best fit for him. He's got the big, strong arm that I think Bills fans would love him. I'm not sold on, but I think that's where they go. They got A.J. McCarron now, too, so they have a situation where they have a guy that is a serviceable enough starter that they don't have to play Allen right away. So I'm going to say Josh Allen to the Buffalo Bills, and I've got 2 quarterbacks already gone. You haven't had a quarterback taken yet. The New York Jets are on the clock at number 3. Do they take quarterback?
I think they scoop up Darnold in that one. Because I like what they're doing right now with their move, because right now they have because I think what they're doing with quarterbacks with having Teddy Bridgewater and Josh McCown is they're both on 1-year deals. They're both about $10 million each. I think it's $10 million for McCown and about $15 million for Teddy. They're going to draft someone, whether that's Darnold or not, and then I think what they're going to do is it's going to be Bridgewater and McCown fighting for that number 1 spot, and then they're either going to trade or cut the other guy. So
I think Bridgewater wins that position too.
Yeah. So if he recovers, I think he can too. It's just a matter of if he recovers. But yeah, I think they're going to go with the Darnold, because I think that can be, he's that one that as a guy you can sit. Another one too, you can sit him for a year, and he can learn under Bowles' team and all that. So I have him at 3. We'll see, but I think he's going to be the first quarterback gone.
At number 3, I think there'll be a third quarterback gone. I'm going to say Baker Mayfield to the New York Jets. A little higher than I would like him to be, but I read a lot of stuff recently that the Jets are just really impressed with him, that he interviewed really well at the Combine. It kind of worries me, him being in New York in that environment, but where they've got a guy like Josh McCown Johnny Manziel even said that Josh McCown was a really, really good veteran to learn behind. Johnny Manziel just didn't want to learn. I think Baker Mayfield goes to the Jets at number 3. I think they would probably prefer Allen, but he's off the board in my scenario. And I think ultimately they would prefer Darnold too, but again, he's off the board. So I'm going to say Baker Mayfield to the Jets, and I've got 3 quarterbacks in the top 3 picks, which isn't really, I don't think, that far-fetched to say it'll happen. So pick number 4, the Cleveland Browns. You had them taking Saquon Barkley with the top pick. Sam Darnold's gone, but they've got 3 other quarterbacks there that they could potentially go with. Who do you think they take?
And then I think they go with the other one. I was flipping back and forth with one. I think that they scoop up Bradley Chubb because, he's getting a lot of comparisons to Myles Garrett as well. And like that, if they see him there at 4, with it makes you wonder. It's like, do you go with that possible quarterback of the future that could fizzle out, or do you go with another possible best player left in the draft with Bradley Chubb, and you go with him? So I think they go with Chubb because that can make that defense that much better. Like, that's already a solid young defense, and then now you have that. That's a scary defensive line with Chubb and Myles Garrett together. I'm
going to go Quentin Nelson, the offensive guard from Notre Dame. I considered Saquon Barkley here, but I think about it. They have Carlos Hyde. They have Duke Johnson. John Dorsey just doesn't strike me as a general manager that's going to take a running back with the 4th pick. When this running back draft class, I think, is deep enough, you get a guy like a Darius Geis or a Sony Michel probably in the 2nd round. Quentin Nelson is the safest pick in this draft. I think low end, he's a solid offensive lineman. There'll be a couple-time Pro Bowl. That's on the low end. I think on the high end, I think he could be a Hall of Fame caliber player. I was listening to Tim Grunhard on the radio the other day, and he said that he already thinks Quentin Nelson is better than Zach Martin, and Zach Martin is probably the best offensive guard, interior lineman in the NFL. So the Browns' offensive line isn't that great, and they lost Joe Thomas this offseason due to retirement. So I'm going to say they go with the safe pick and take Quentin Nelson from Notre Dame. Remember, John Dorsey's first pick as a Chiefs general manager was also an offensive lineman, so they like those offensive linemen. And that's where I think they go. Pick number 5, the Denver Broncos. They're a team that also they could do a lot of different things depending on who's available. So they went out and signed Case Keenum this offseason. Some people think maybe they could still get a quarterback. What do you think they do here, Luke?
I think they're the one that trades with the Bills. I think Buffalo jumps up from 12 to 5, and I think Buffalo does take then Josh Allen with their pick. And then Denver moves down to later on in the draft.
I think they take Bradley Chubb at number 5. I was torn between him or Saquon Barkley, but the Denver kind of hung its hat on its defense. A couple years ago when they were Super Bowl champion, they've lost a lot of pieces on that defense. I think Von Miller's. I think we're going to see a little bit of a decline here in the next couple of years. So put Bradley Chubb up there and let him do his thing, and that's where I think they go. I think they go defense. I know they cut C.J. Anderson the other day, so they could potentially go.
That could be a possibility.
Go with Barkley, but I think they're going to talk themselves. Vance Joseph's a defensive guy, and I think they'll talk themselves into taking Bradley Chubb. Pick number 6, the Indianapolis Colts. They had switched with the New York Jets earlier in the offseason, so the Jets were supposed to be 6. The Colts were 3. They flip-flopped. The Colts need just about everything except for a quarterback. You could maybe make the argument that it wouldn't hurt them to draft a quarterback. Based on what you still have on the board, what do you think the Colts do?
I think that they're going to scoop up Tremaine Edmonds from Virginia Tech. They need help just about everywhere besides quarterback and number 1 wide receiver. Oh, and kicker. They got those positions taken care of, but everything else they need someone. And I think linebacker should be a good focus early on, especially because after Quentin Nelson goes, there's not a whole lot of offensive linemen that are going to be good for that top 5, top 6 pick left. So I think they go with. I think Tremaine is. I think he can be a solid linebacker, and a linebacker can usually be your quarterback of the defense, and we can see what he can do as that.
I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley to Indianapolis. They have Marlon Mack that I think they like, but unlike the Browns, where the Browns have Hyde and Johnson, they have that 1-2 punch. Indy doesn't. It's Marlon Mack, and that's really it. I mean, they've got Robert Turbin for what that's worth. I think Saquon Barkley is a once every couple year type running back, and for him to drop to 6, that could be the steal of the draft for the Colts. And they need just about everything.
I think they have the worst roster in the NFL, hands down.
Like I can't think of a team that has a worse roster than them. So I'm gonna say Saquon Barkley. It gives Andrew Luck a security blanket.
It gives his name just in my head.
Their backup quarterback
who came from the Patriots.
Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, it gives Brissett a security blanket too if he is playing too.
So I'm going to say Saquon Barkley to the Colts. I don't think we've agreed on any of these so far.
Nope.
So that is good. Pick number 7, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a team I had high expectations for coming into last season. I picked them to win the NFC South. Jameis Winston took a step back. I think the pressure's on in Tampa this year to win and win now because you got to think about Jameis Winston. This is the 4th year of his rookie contract. This was Dirk Cotter's 2nd year, and they took a step back. They got to make some changes. What do you think they do with the 7th pick?
I think that they are going to go and strengthen up that defense because that was a bigger issue. I mean, their offense struggled at times, but their defense really struggled. And, as good of a player as Gerald McCoy's been, he's getting up there in age. There's not a whole lot of other good players around. So I think that they're going to go with Vita Vea from Washington. I think that defensive lineman, other than Chubb, I think that he is one of the best defensive linemen in the draft. I think that he has shown a lot of potential too. He's someone that I think can be a sneaky pick too, especially to a team like Tampa that already has the talent to compete for the playoffs in the division. Because out of all the teams that have picked so far, including the Bills trading up, I think that Tampa has the best chance to compete for their division and compete in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to say they go defense. I'm going to say Derwin James from Florida State. The safety, their defensive secondary has not been great. And when you play in a division that has Michael Thomas, that has Julio Jones, you got to have that secondary. They like to go with Florida State guys, as we saw with them drafting Jameis Winston a couple years ago. And I think James is the best defensive player other than Bradley Chubb in this class. So I'm going to say they go with Derwin James at number 7. Moving on, pick number 8, the Chicago Bears. We talked a little bit earlier about some of the stuff they did in the offseason. A new coach, former Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, is in town. What do they do with pick number 8, Luke?
I think that they're going to strengthen up that good young defense. Raquan Smith from Georgia. We
finally agree on one.
I really like. I need to get more into film on some of these other guys, but I really was liking what I was seeing out of him with Georgia. That was a really good defense, and he was a big reason why.
He's one of the guys that I really, really like because he's got such a high motor, and he's an effort player, and I really, really, really like him. And that's why I have him ahead of Tremaine Edmonds. I think he's got more of the upside than Edmonds does. So I'm going to say they go with Roquan Smith. So it took us to pick number 8 to finally agree on one, which is good. That is good. Moving on, pick number 9, another team we talked about that kind of won this offseason. San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo looked like Tom Brady towards the end of last season. They went out and they added Richard Sherman. They've got some young pieces there. Kyle Shanahan looks like he's got things heading in the right direction. What do they do at number 9?
I think that they are going to go and pick to strengthen that defense. They get another guy to go across from Sherman, and I have him taking Denzel Ward from Ohio State. Because like that, if Sherman can play at about 85% of what he's playing at before he got hurt, that's a good corner set right there. You got Sherman and them because like the rest of the corners. It's a lot of just like it's Trevon Reed, Channing Stribling. It's just a lot of guys that like don't impress me. So you add a guy who can be another shutdown corner, especially with Sherman being up there in age. That can be a solid defensive backfield right there.
I'm going to take Tremaine Edmonds, the linebacker from Virginia Tech. The whole thing with Reuben Foster now, they drafted him last year, and the allegations of domestic violence, there's a legitimate chance he never sees the field again. So I think maybe they kind of get his replacement and plan for the future there, and they take Tremaine Edmonds, the linebacker from Virginia Tech. Pick number 10, the Oakland Raiders. John Gruden's in town for what that's worth. Derek Carr kind of took a couple steps back last year. Marshawn Lynch came back. He looked okay. I mean, about what you would expect for a running back that hadn't played in a year and a half.
And one that was 30 and got beat up as much as he did, too.
And takes the hits that he takes. Their defense, Leran, not that great. Do you think they go defense at pick number 10? What
I
do you think they do?
I think that's where Derwin James falls to it at 9. They need help really everywhere besides Khalil Mack.
Yes. I think that's probably a pretty good point.
Especially now, too, with Alden Smith getting cut, too, after all of his alcohol intake.
Yeah, he needs help. I'm going to go with another safety, but I'm going to go Mika Fitzpatrick of Alabama. I have James off the board. They need help in that defense. That secondary in particular is not good at all, and I think that's the route they go. I think they would prefer Derwin James if he's there, but in this situation, I don't have him there. So I'm going to say Mika Fitzpatrick, the safety from Alabama, goes pick number 10 to the Raiders. 5 more picks left in our mock draft, and pick number 11 goes to the Miami Dolphins. Really interesting team. 2 years ago, they were a wild card team with Matt Moore and TJ Yates at quarterback. Last year, they brought in Jay Cutler after Ryan Tannehill was injured in the regular season, or in the preseason, actually. They didn't really do much, and now they're picking pick number 11. What do you think they do here at number 11?
I don't know, because you look back, they didn't make the playoffs, but they made the playoffs because of Jay Ajayi, Jarvis Landry, and Ndamukong Suh. All 3 of those players are now gone. I think that they're one of those. Their roster is better than the Colts, but they're another one of those rosters. Just like there's a lot of just not good on it all around, and all the good they had, they sent away. I think that the trade for the Rams player slipping my head right now. They made a trade for the Rams player, I'm pretty sure, didn't they?
I can't think of who you're talking about, but I know.
Oh no, he's with the Giants. Never mind. Ignore me. But I don't know. They have with their roster right now. It's like they have some decent guys, but not a whole lot of wow guys. But I have them taking Rashaan Evans, the linebacker from Alabama. So he's built more like the newer age of linebackers we have now. He has good length. He's fast. So he's that smaller one like we've seen that's kind of taken over the NFL more recently instead of the big bulky guy. So that's who I have at 11.
I've had a quarterback falling in my draft, and I think his slide stops at number 11. I'm going to say Miami takes Josh Rosen from UCLA. Ryan Tannehill hasn't played much in the last 2 seasons. They did sign Brock Osweiler this offseason for what that's worth, if that makes you feel comfortable. Tannehill's kind of at a crossroads. This is his 7th season in the NFL. This is normally where it's kind of put up or shut up time for a quarterback. And I think if Rosen's there at 11, or Arnold, or Darnold, or Allen, or Mayfield, I think they take him. And I'm not sure maybe that if one of them's sitting there at 6 or 7, they don't phone the Colts or Bucks and trade up. But in this situation, I have Rosen sliding all the way down to 11 and going to the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, we can see that. And then at 12, that is the Bills, you made the trade, so that would be...
Did you have a trade with the Bills, too?
Yeah, so that'd be Denver for me, and then
Giants
for you. So who do you have the Giants taking then?
I got to take Mike McGlinchey from Notre Dame. The offensive line, as we addressed earlier, is terrible. They did add Nate Solder, who's solid. He's not great, but he's solid. Put McGlinchey on the other side of him, and that gets rid of Eric Flowers for the most part, keeps him off the field. And I think that's the way they go. They protect Eli Manning and go with Mike McGlinchey from Notre Dame.
And then I have him taking Minkah Fitzpatrick, that secondary then, especially with the Eli Apple kind of situation too, and how he is a trouble in the locker room. So,
and if Denver stays at 5, I could see that. I could see a situation. I almost put this in my mock draft where they take Derwin James, and then Bradley Chubb goes to Indianapolis, and Saquon Barkley drops to Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay, if Saquon Barkley's there at 7, I think Tampa Bay would take him.
I would take him. Because and that's another one too. You look at that offense. If you have Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans, you have Saquon, a running back, you have James Winston, quarterback. That could be a good offense. So
and OJ Howard, if he can kind of come around,
he played decent too. So
yeah. So pick number 13, the Washington Redskins. This is just not a great roster by any means. They traded Alex Smith. They traded away Kendall Fuller, one of the best young corners in the league. And really outside of Ryan Kerrigan and Josh Norman. There's not a ton there.
They let probably their second most underrated defense player go too with Sue Cravens has been just kind of hit or miss because he hasn't been playing. But I also think too they let Will Compton walk, and he when he's been healthy, he hasn't been Luke Kuechly or healthy Sean Lee, but he's been a solid linebacker, and he's now with the Titans. So yeah, that defense, I don't know. There's a lot of just you have Kerrigan, you have Norman, and then it's just Orlando Scandrick just came there. Oh boy,
for what that's worth.
So I have them on defense. They need a linebacker, and so I have them taking Leighton Vander Esch from Boise.
I have them taking Vita Vea from Washington. I think they added to that front seven. When you're in a division that has Ezekiel Elliott and Jay Ajayi, you want is LeGarrette Blount still there? Did he go?
LeGarrette went to
Detroit.
I think the Lions.
I can't remember where he went.
But there's the possibility Saquon will be there. There's a possibility. So that when you go against a division that has some top tier running backs.
Yeah, and their front seven, aside from Kerrigan, has just not been very good. So I'm going to say they go with Vita Vea from Washington. Pick number 14, the Green Bay Packers. They were exposed last year after Aaron Rodgers was out most of the season with a broken collarbone. They might have one of the worst rosters in the NFL right now. They did just sign Jimmy Graham. What do you see them doing with pick number 14?
Man, with how upset Aaron Rodgers is apparently getting with this situation, I almost would give him some more help on offense. Because if that means more shootouts, I would rather have Aaron Rodgers than most other quarterbacks in that situation. So I think that's when we're going to see. I think that's my first receiver off the board with Calvin Ridley going to the Packers from Alabama. So I think Ridley can go there. I think that him and Jimmy Graham together, and Devontae, Aaron Rodgers will love that. So yeah, we'll see. They need to address stuff on defense too. But I mean, if with them still needing help at receiver and Ridley still on the board, I almost see them going with Ridley.
I'm going to say they do address the defense. The secondary the last couple of years has been terrible in Green Bay. And I'm going to say go Josh Jackson, the cornerback from Iowa. I don't think he's the best corner in this draft class. I think Denzel Ward's probably a better all-around corner. But Green Bay has a weird thing of drafting Iowa players. You think about Micah Hyde, Mike Daniels, Brian Bulaga. They tend to go with Abdul Hodge way back in the day. They tend to draft a lot of players from Iowa. And Jackson kind of reminds me of Marcus Peters in that he's got the ball hawk ability. He's a much better all-around corner than Peters is. He's not a shutdown corner, but he's a lot better. And I think they go with Josh Jackson at pick number 14.
Yeah, that could be a good one too. I think if we were to continue on, I'd have him falling a little later. But yeah, I was talking about it with Josh Allen earlier. Besides Cam, there's not a whole lot of Iowa defensive guys that you think of as NFL player that he struggled against, but he was one of them, and he made that day bad for Allen.
Yeah,
so
and he looked really good against Ohio State too. So in Wisconsin, the last pick of our mock draft, the Arizona Cardinals. Their coach retired, their quarterback retired. They did sign Sam Bradford this offseason. Steve Wilkes is the head coach at Arizona now. To be honest, I didn't know a lot about him until he took the job, and then he'd been the defensive coordinator at Carolina for the last year. Yeah, last year. Yeah,
because it was McDermott the year before. Yeah. So I mean, he helped keep that Panther defense near the top after losing McDermott. But yeah, we'll see. I have them addressing the quarterback issue. I mean, you almost have to with. I am high on Sam Bradford personally, but at the same time, Sam Bradford is
he'll stay healthy.
He is not a healthy quarterback, and they have Brandon Doughty, Mike Glennon, and Alec Torgson on their roster right now. So they have a guy from Penn. Where's Doughty from?
Doughty's from Western Kentucky.
So that's okay, but they need. I think honestly, and Bradford's been in the league since 2010. He's getting up there in age. I think that if Bradford's healthy, I think Bradford's a really good bridge quarterback. So you get Rosen at 15, and then you sit him, And if Bradford stays healthy, perfect. Even situation, too, where you can kind of pull like what the Giants did. Don't make the mistake of benching Bradford when he doesn't need to, but like have your backup be Mike Glennon at 2, and then just have at 3, have your rookie quarterback sit and learn, and then he can move up to 2 if the situation you can make a trade or cut Glennon.
I also have the Cardinals taking a quarterback, but I'm going to say they take Lamar Jackson. I think they would prefer Rosen if he's there, but I don't have him sliding quite that far. I really wish Bruce Arians was still in Arizona because I'd want to see what Lamar Jackson could do in that offense. But they've got David Johnson if he can stay healthy. Larry Fitzgerald, who seems like it's just going to never age or retire because he's still playing well at 35, 36 years old.
Yeah.
So I think they go Lamar Jackson, let him sit behind Bradford. I think Glennon is just really there to get cut in the preseason if they go at the quarterback because they're not going to – I don't think they'll keep him on the roster if they draft a quarterback. And I think the former Louisville Cardinal becomes an Arizona Cardinal. And that is our top 15. Do you think the Patriots draft a quarterback in the first round? And if so, who do you think they –
I don't think they do in the first round. I would not – I mean – I feel like they'll take a quarterback at some point. Watch them take Tanner Lee. Like after Carr made the comparisons to Brady.
They'll take Tanner Lee in like the 5th round.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do take a quarterback, but I don't see it until later. I mean, Garoppolo was what? Garoppolo was a 2nd round.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the quarterbacks Brady was a 6th. So like all their quarterbacks they've taken over the years have been later. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see them going with like a Tanner Lee, a Kyle Aletta in like the 5th, 6th round.
Well, I think part of the reason they've taken quarterbacks in the later rounds is because they knew where they were at with Tom Brady. And, in 2012, you weren't thinking about we need to get Tom Brady's replacement right away. You're thinking, let's get a guy, let's build him up, let's have him be Tom Brady's backup, we can turn around and sell him, so to speak. I think they might. I think it's a legitimate possibility they take a quarterback, depending who's there. Now, if Jackson and Mason Rudolph are gone, then I don't think so. But I think if either one of those guys they pick at 23 and 32, I believe, or 23 and 31. I think if either one of those guys are sitting there definitely at 31, I think they're going to be looking at it. And there's a lot of other teams I could see taking a quarterback. I could see the Chargers taking a quarterback.
I would if I like some of these guys that cusp starting, sitting a little bit like the Mason Rudolph that like probably can be a starter right away, maybe not. I think some of those teams like the Chargers, the Giants in the 2nd round.
Saints.
Like some of those guys that they have some good quarterbacks to get up there in age, and we've seen guys fall fast. Peyton Manning had an unbelievable defense around him to kind of shield the fact that he had a horrible trail off. Like we saw one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time play miserable last year.
I mean, it was bad. I think Jacksonville could be in contention for a quarterback if Mason Rudolph or Lamar Jackson. I think they pick at 30.
They're 29. Yeah, Minnesota's 30.
I could see Jacksonville going with a quarterback if either one of those guys are there. So there's probably there's 6 quarterbacks I think could be taken in the first round, and there's probably 11 or 12 teams that could take a quarterback, maybe a little bit more than that. I don't think Pittsburgh's not taking a quarterback. Green Bay's not taking a quarterback. Kansas City's not taking a quarterback.
Minnesota's
not. Chicago's not.
Philly's not.
I mean, the Rams aren't. The Cowboys aren't. Seattle's probably not. There's a couple teams that I think you can make the argument that might. I mean, Tampa Bay, you could argue that maybe they should.
Yeah,
I don't think they will.
I think a lot of those teams, some of those more teams you named more recently, they're one of those that they might take a quarterback, but I see them more too like that later in the draft. The guy, the C.J. Beathard's, the guy that you're taking as the security blanket, not the not your starter. The guy that, all right, here's some depth, just in case we if a guy like Dak goes out, we actually have a backup quarterback. So we'll see. But who are some guys that you're looking at the Chiefs to be nabbing up?
Well, it's tough because they don't have a first-round pick, or at least not yet. I read a lot of rumors about maybe them trading up into the first round, late first round. If so, I really, really hope Josh Jackson from Iowa is still there. Not just because I'm an Iowa fan, but he reminds me a lot of Marcus Peters about the headaches, and I think he's a better all-around corner than Peters. So I'd like to see him. When I look in the third, fourth round, I really like Shaquem Griffin from Central Florida.
That's a good one.
The Chiefs could always use another linebacker. He's got a great motor. I think he'd be even he might not be a great every down player, but he's going to be a high motor guy. He's going to give it 100%. And I like him a lot. Late in the draft, I kind of want to see them pick up Dorrance Armstrong, the defensive end from Kansas, because he was originally going into last year. A lot of mock drafts had him going late first, early second, and he didn't do a ton this year. I think part of that was he was on a bad team, and a lot of teams figured out that he was the only thing they had, so he had to drop off. But I think he could really be a player that surprises people. He's projected to go somewhere in the 4th or 5th round, most likely. So those are just a couple of the gems that I would like to see them get. What do you think for the Vikings?
I think that they're going to go with offensive line, especially now with Joe Berger retiring. That was one of the few. The offensive line played a lot better than, obviously, 2 years ago, but the offensive line was still the weakest part of that draft for them. So I think that we're going to see them scoop up some linemen. If you look at a lot of different mock drafts, it's Will Hernandez, it's Billy Price, it's Mike, was it McGlinchey? It's Isaiah Wynn. So I think that they're going to go with offensive line first. Connor Williams. I think without the draft right statement, I think that it'll be probably Isaiah Wynn at 30. But I think that they're going to go with linemen first.
From Notre Dame.
He's Georgia.
Georgia, okay.
But a lot of them have the Notre Dame player too. Will Hernandez from UTEP. So we'll see. Yeah, because that is the biggest issue that they need to address is like in terms of like starting stuff. It is that this actual mock draft has them taking Josh Jackson. And Minnesota's another team that's taken some Iowa guys over the years and has
Chad Greenway.
Chad Greenway had a phenomenal career with the Vikings. And. So we'll see. I think they're going to go with linemen first, and then after that, either linemen again in the second round or start adding some more depth because as good as that defensive is, there's some guys that when they go out, then they take a huge trail off. And obviously, you can't have a shutdown corner as your backup for when Xavier Rhodes comes out. But, it's good to have someone so if, you need to give Everson.
Not a Phillip Gaines.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to have it to where if Everson Griffin has to go out for a few plays, you're not going to see the guy, the defensive line get torched because, or if Linval Joseph has to come out. So I think they're going to go with line first, and then they're going to go and add depth at positions that need it. I wouldn't be surprised, though. This is where it gets kind of hard, too, because, if guys like a Josh Jackson are there at 30, Trey Waynes has been good. He hasn't been a top 15 pick like he was. Terrence Newman's no longer on the roster, and I don't know if they'll re-sign him again because he was re-signed late last year too in the offseason. So if a guy like him's there, do you take another solid number 2 corner, or do you go with the line? I still think it's the line, but we'll see what happens.
I think the Chiefs go pretty much defense this whole draft.
I would.
When you look at it, I think their first pick, if they don't trade up, and I think they could because they have 5 picks in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round total, and they have 2 second-round picks next year. You package your second-round pick this year, your second-round pick next year, and let's say Philadelphia at 32. That's probably enough to slide into that first round if there's a player you really like. I think they go defensive back and linebacker particularly. Maybe address the defensive line and maybe an interior lineman depth. But outside of that, I don't – you look at the offense, maybe they go with a quarterback in the 5th or 6th round, a guy like a Mike White or a Tanner Lee, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't see them addressing a quarterback until the 5th or 6th round. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited. A week away.
Yeah, definitely it's fun. And then we also will have updated uniforms coming out too next few days.
And the schedule tomorrow.
Yeah, schedule tomorrow. The Jaguars and Dolphins uniform reveal is either today or tomorrow. And actually the Jaguars ones apparently have leaked online, which looking at them, they look about the same as the regular. Some of the weird paneling in the shoulder area is a little different, but it's a very simple design. And the best part is the helmet is just black. So that will be nice. But, yeah, so we'll have those new uniforms. We already had April 19th is when the Dolphins and Jaguars both. So tomorrow we'll get the new schedule and new uniforms for the Dolphins and Jags. And then and the schedule and all that. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what, because after this, then it's the long part of the off season, because we had all this fun
after the draft.
Yeah, because luckily after the Super Bowl, you have the combine, right, and then a couple weeks later you have free agency, and then a month after that you have the draft, and then that's OTAs. I'm just like, and then training camp will be back finally.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for this edition of an X106 Sports Podcast. That's pretty much all I have, unless you have anything else.
This is my last one, though. Yeah, I am graduating in a little over a week, so that's crazy, but it's been fun.
You're for sure graduating?
I'm pretty sure I am. I think I'm pretty sure that I can just not show up to my finals and still pass most of them. I think there's one where I'd be at a borderline, like a D+, and so and it's not common law or theory, so I would actually have to get a C in it. But I am gonna pass probably the 4.0 too if I get my ethno-film study grade up. So
it's a good feeling to have.
Yeah.
So that'll do it for this edition of X106 Sports Podcast. For Luke Peterson, this is Trevor Mader signing off for X106 Sports.